Welcome, one and all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so happy to see all of you this morning. Old friends, lots of old friends, and a couple of new friends, some brand new friends too. And it's all so wonderful. It feels so good. This is our annual tarot card draw, which we've been doing for many years. And some of you have been participating in this for a very long time. And it's a big highlight for me. This is one of the most wonderful things that I love to do every year. So I am Pamela Eakins, the co-creator of Tarot of the Spirit with my mom. And ever since we created this deck, which was back in the 1980s, I've been using it. I use it every single day, and I use it as a practice. This is my practice. So today is part of my practice, and we will be getting our cards for 2022. Each individual will be getting your own cards for 2022. And we will be drawing the cards within the context of the meaning of the year. So this year is the Lovers. It's 2022. Really simply, numerologically, it's 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 2, 2022. And that is the Lovers in the Tarot. But I wanted to begin with a review of the Hierophant, which was 2021, and then an introduction to 2022, the year of the Lovers. And then this intro will be posted on YouTube later. What we will be going into today is one of what I think of as the three great mysteries of the earth plane. And for me, those three great mysteries are the birthing, the deathing, and the loving. And now we go into the big issue of the loving. Okay, so what about the Hierophant? Well, the Hierophant. So we met last year, not knowing what to expect. Last year was the year of the Hierophant. Here's the card, right? And what would happen during that year? We came out of 2020, the year of the Emperor, where our worlds were rocked by COVID, especially by COVID, which we did think would come to an end and has not yet come to an end, right? So we are still in this cataclysm of that we began to experience a couple of years ago. We're going into our third year now. So in terms of this cataclysm, which happened which deepened in the Hierophant, we hoped it would end in the Hierophant, and we would emerge that year, which would be 2021, as in a certain sense, the wounded healer, having learned the lessons from the Hierophant, if you could say that. So fire, we're dealing in fire. Fire's our spiritual struggle. We were dealing with this cataclysm spiritually. In water, we were dealing with our feeling of having broken hearts and, our heart being broken and feeling like maybe we'd been betrayed by who, by what, who knows. and then wind or air, we're facing our fears, or at least maybe we're facing them, but we're inside a lot of our fear of the unknown future. And then in earth, we're dealing with our physical calamities. And not only was it COVID, but we had so many natural disasters, the illness, the natural disasters, and financial fears. I mean, not everybody faced financial fears, but a lot of people did during that time period. So this all resulted in a feeling of being wounded. And at first we look around for, who to blame, because we feel victimized by this situation. And then we get tempered, we get tempered through the situation. And then we begin to seek our healing. How are we going to move out of this? Even if we're not moving out of it socially, how can we move out of it personally? How can we transcend what feels like victimization and then find the healing path within ourselves? So that was the big shift in the Hierophant, was finding the healing path within, not looking for it without, because we were waiting. We're still waiting for the Messiah. We're waiting for someone to pop up, the leadership to pop up that we can follow globally. We're waiting for this. Okay, well, we're back to the same issue. We're the ones we've been waiting for. So there we are again. We're returned to ourselves again. Okay, the power of the Hierophant. So just for a moment, I'm still on the Hierophant. The power of the Hierophant is listening. So, and when we look at the Hierophant, we see in the card, there's like a headset there. You can see that on the screen. And the Hierophant is listening. And then the idea is then making a transmission to the lovers. These are the lovers at the feet of the Hierophant. Okay, so it's all about the listening. And then the question, what did we hear? And when we begin to decipher what we heard and what we know and what the message is, then that's when in the Hierophant, we, as they call it in the Western mystery tradition, we receive the keys to the temple. So this is the inner temple. Once we begin to perceive the message, and the Hierophant is 5. 5 begins with suffering and ends with healing, ideally. And the healing is about uniting that which has been fragmented, binding pairs of opposites. And the Hierophant is about linking together, bringing together and linking together. So ultimately, the Hierophant is about the story of linking together, the story that brings us together. We enter into, in terms of the Hierophant, it's the story that, quote, nails it, because in Hebrew, the Hierophant, the word for the Hierophant means nail, like nailing it together. Okay, what is the story that brings it all together? Well, as it turns out, in the end, it's a story of compassion and empathy and understanding. We come to that story and that conclusion by being devoured by the spirits of illness and death. I mean, once we release into that and we become devoured, this is the traditional shamanic story. We come out of that after being dismembered, we come out of it again, brought together, humbler, and with a new story. Okay, so this is the Hierophant in a nutshell. I mean, a very short version of the Hierophant. Okay, so now we come to the lovers. So now we segue. We're moving. It's like a spiral, and it's moving. So now we come into the lovers. Well, okay, the lovers are about the storytelling. So the Hierophant is about receiving the story, and then the lovers come to be about another level of the storytelling. So the lovers receive the story. See, and if for those who have eyes to see, as they say, and ears to hear, you are all the Hierophant and you are all the lovers, right? So the Hierophant part of yourself hears, listens, and passes on to this new part of yourself, the lovers, that is now rising. Turns out the lovers is about the power of the voice. The Hierophant's about listening, lovers is the voice. So today we are going to be focusing on the voice and the voice that's coming through for us and for each of us in 2022. The esoteric name of the lover's card is the children of the voice. Okay, we are the lovers. We are, that sounds like a song. We are the lovers. We are the child of the voice, the child of the voice. I can almost hear the tune. Well, what does it mean to be children of the voice? Well, it's the voice of the eternal. Okay, what is eternal? It's this creative field out of which all of us grow, the creative field out of which all arises and which also is within ourselves. So our task as lovers becomes deepening in our knowledge of the field, finding deeper purpose, deeper meaning, deeper fulfillment, our own individual creative and expressive form and power, finding your voice. This requires developing respect for and celebrating your individual perspective or point of view. And this point of view changes as we develop. It changes as we grow. It changes as we receive more information. This voice is a vibration that moves from the unmanifest to the manifest. It's a vibration that separates out from the infinite creative field. It separates out and becomes your voice, your personal voice, each of our voice. This voice is the word, the vibration that brings all into being, maintains all things, and dissolves all things. And you have the power of the voice. Of course, you have one voice when we're manifest as humans, and it all becomes part of the harmony of voices or discordance of voices, depending on how you are perceiving and looking at it. The content of the message depends on what you are attending to. Your attention is a result of your attraction, what you are called to. And the power of attraction is really central to understanding the lovers. What we're attracted to, honoring that and knowing why. Your voice then is the individualized expression of the grand cosmic vibration. Your voice is related to your attractions and also to your predispositions or your disposition. Okay, I want to come back to this idea of disposition. Your disposition changes when you receive new information, and it changes as we listen. So that's the power of the Hierophant. So the power of the Hierophant is still going on as a like an introduction to the lovers. The lovers is known as the disposing intelligence, which I find really interesting. Disposing intelligence, disposition. So a disposition is a prevailing tendency or a mood or an inclination. It is a temperamental makeup. It's also a tendency to act or to speak in a certain manner under given circumstances. And again, that disposition is based on what we are attending to. The dispose to dispose is a tendency or a predisposition to put into a position or to pose or to put in a place or to arrange. This is to dispose. It means to regulate, to settle, to come to terms with, to transfer control of, to release, to get rid of. And that's something we're going to focus on, getting rid of. It requires discernment. And it can also be related to our evolving sense of justice, which is also going to be shifting over time. Oh, good. I'm seeing the lovers on the screen. Yeah. So this requires discernment. It's related to our evolving sense of justice. And we arrange and rearrange the position of things. We release the position of things in order to survive, in order to create something new. To dispose is to know and honor our own attractions, your own attractions. To dispose is to create through the power of discernment, creating space for movement, movement toward the beloved. And this is all about inviting the beloved in. The lovers is number 6, called the mediating intelligence. Number 6 in the major arcana of the tarot. The mediating intelligence is the open space between, the open space between the sides. In the open space, we balance and rebalance, which requires continual movement. A lot of times this space is seen as the Vesica Pisces, which is 2 overlapping circles, the Vesica Pisces with the space in between, or in the 6-pointed star, which has an upward pointed triangle and a downward pointed triangle, and it's the space in between. That's the space of mediation. And we must keep moving in order to be healthy and to keep moving around the space. And even a cardiologist was saying to me last week that even the healthiest person would die if standing completely still. You can't stand still. You have to move. And the reason that you have to move and we have to move is in order for the plasma to circulate through our body that keeps everything alive. Movement is what keeps our heart pumping and our brain working. And so the lovers are always going to be moving around the center, balancing and rebalancing. Also, the lovers resides in the heart chakra on the tree of life. As we back into the tree, okay, so what that means is this. Now I'm going to show you the path of the lovers on the tree of life. And the path of the lovers goes between sphere. Let's see. I'm looking at this backwards on the screen, so I need to get this correct for you. It goes between sphere number 3. Oh, I've got 2 different versions going on my screen here. So it goes between sphere number 3 and sphere number 6. From 3 to 6. That's the path of the lovers on the tree of life. And this tree of life, we back into as if it's our body. And the path of the lovers actually crosses our heart. It goes straight across our heart and moves through the heart chakra. The path of the lovers on the tree of life appears in a different place than we would think it would be. We would think it would be between, let's say, the divine masculine and the divine feminine, which are spheres 2 and 3 on the tree of life. That's where you think it would go, on that path. But in fact, that's not the path of the lovers on the tree of life. The path of the lovers on the tree of life goes between the divine mother and the sacred child. Very strange place for it to be, between the divine mother and the sacred child. On this path of the lovers, the path of mother and child, the mother becomes the cosmic sea from which all emerges and to which all returns. She is the creative field, the womb of the universe, the domain of beginnings and endings, the creative force moving into form. She is emotion, love, prophecy, and mediumship, the primal substance of life, the plasma, if you will, the dark mother and the dark matter of the universe. And she is called Bina in Sphere 3, the secret wisdom called Mother. She reproduces and evolves herself and the cosmic pattern. She brings forth her son, who lives in Sphere 6, in the heart of the tree of life. Then, mythically speaking, her son becomes her lover and her father, mythologically. She becomes the lover of the son, and the cycle of creation continues. Bina is called the foundation of beauty, and the path of the lovers is called the foundation of beauty. The brother, the sacred son, lives in the 6th sphere on the tree of life, which is called beauty. Okay, so this is the lovers card, the path of the lovers. And I want to say that there are other cards very much involved in this. Okay, so no background knowledge is needed for this, but I do want to point out that all the mother cards, the 4 mother cards in the tarot, are all living in sphere number 3. Water mother is the divine mother, and the other 3 mother cards are manifestations of her, of the water mother, in fire, wind, and earth. The same with the brother. So all 4 brother cards are involved in this with the lovers. The wind brother is the main brother, and then he appears in the other 3 suits, which would be fire, water, and earth. Okay, so why is I don't want to go too much into this right now, but this path moves between the divine mother and the divine son. Okay, all of the mothers are related to water. That's why water mother is the main mother, and all the brothers are related to wind. Okay, and so those 2 are the lovers on the card, the primary lovers on the card of the lovers here. Additionally, all the 3s are involved, because this is sphere 3, the 3s of fire, water, air, and earth. So if any of these come up in your reading, it's really important. The 3s are the place of birthing, giving birth. And then the 6s are the other set, because it moves between sphere 3 and sphere 6. Well, the 6s are the place that we want to live from. The 6 of fire, 6 of water, 6 of wind, 6 of earth. These 6s become a spiritual practice for us, and they correlate with the lovers card, which is what this year is about. So this is the year of the lovers. It's a 6 year, and this year especially, we want to practice these 4 cards. 6 of fire is about making your offering into the world. 6 of water is about about living in faith. 6 of wind is about becoming clear about what's really important to you. And the 6 of earth is walking the beauty way. And the beauty way has to do with harmony in all spheres of your life. And that's a practice. It's not something that we automatically get or understand. So when we look at the Lover's card up close, really close, we can see that the divine feminine, Bina, is holding the divine masculine, the sacred masculine. And we can see, if we look really close, that the masculine looks to be in fear and actually is wounded and bleeding. I never saw that in the very beginning, but I see it so clearly now that he is bleeding from the leg. And this is the divine feminine trying to enwrap the wounded masculine and step in to help. This is all about healing. This is a caduceus. It's about healing. Okay, we will return back to that. So this is about the birthing and the continuity of the cycle of creation. And this is not necessarily easy. It's about the birthing of the child, and that requires crossing the abyss. And what crossing the abyss means is that path of the lovers that I showed you on the tree of life crosses over what is called the abyss. And that is a gap between worlds. It's a gap between the unmanifest and the manifest. And it's a perilous journey sometimes on the way into manifestation, potentially perilous journey that has to pass through a narrow birth canal of dark matter crossing between worlds. And it's not a line, it's a channel. It is a channel. The path of the lovers is a channel. It's a channel from the dark mother, or the channel of the dark mother, crossing the cosmic sea into the luminescent matter of the manifestation of the divine child. Okay, so just let that come in however it comes in, because this is going to be our task this year, to produce the luminescent divine child within ourselves through all our works. The mother has been known also as mother, as Mar, Mare, Matter. She appears in blue, like as in blue robes. And Mary appears, Mar also appears in blue robes as the consoler, because this spiritual experience of Sphere 3, Bina, is the vision of sorrow. You know, why is that? The birth itself can be a perilous journey. And then life itself can be a perilous journey. And then whatever is born as luminescent matter in our world is going to die. So the birthing and the deathing are part of the same movement. It's a birth, it's a death. And then we have to ask ourselves, what would we give birth to anyway? That's a big part of this path. What would we bring forth anyway, knowing that it's going to die? So, and the child also is going to get wounded. And we know the child, we already know the child will be wounded. So how can the child, and we're all the child, see, we're all the mother and we're all the child. How can the child overcome his hurting? How can he heal? How can he learn? And if he doesn't overcome his hurting, he can wind up continuing with this cycle of hurting and pain. In fact, he can inflict his own hurt and pain on the world. So we're all the divine mother, we're all the sacred son. The name of this card in Hebrew is Zayin, Z-A-I-N. And Zayin is there's a sword right in the middle of the card. It's called the sword of Zayin, or the engine of division. Interestingly, it also means penis. Okay, very fascinating to me. So when the divine mother brings forth the divine son, then after that happens, we begin to imagine paternity. Paternity is not imagined until maternity is ascertained. When the divine mother brings forth, and when we can see her progeny, we start looking for the father. We ask, what fertilized this cycle in the first place? Before every child of the cosmos became a lover. Where's the beginning here? So this is part of the path. Understanding the lovers is also understanding this cosmology. So here we go. Penis in Hebrew, the Hebrew name of this path, the penis too is not a line, but a channel. So this is all about channeling energy, a channel that transmits the potential for life, for the becoming of luminescent matter. It is also a channel through which waste is disposed, and both of those are parts of the lover. So Zayn, as I mentioned, is also called a sword. The sword is called, quote, the action of the holy guardian angel, because the other thing that the sword does is cuts away the veil so that we can see through, so that we can see truth. It's called the sword of knowledge and purpose. It reveals subconsciousness within ourselves and also self-consciousness. It's a sword that separates out birth and death. It's a symbol of separation, a departure from the cosmic sea and a return to the cosmic sea. And this is overseen, all this action is overseen by the Archangel Raphael, who is the Archangel of healing and wholeness, because eventually we are going to be led to love and to restoration on this path. So it's a phallic path and also a path of unity. And the sexual erotic aspect of creation, or rather the phallus represents the sexual erotic aspect of creation and also the disposing. It's the principle of polarity which produces the manifestation of luminescent matter out of dark matter. So this is all, I feel like this is very esoteric. In a way, to me, it's really deep and deep food for thought, especially as we go into drawing our cards for the year. The astrology is Gemini, and Gemini is an air sign. So air is about the mind. It's also about consciousness. Gemini is about our ability to focus on ideas that have not yet entered manifestation. This is about the air. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is about communication. It also is symbolized by a power tool, which is the staff of healing. The symbol also of Gemini is the twins, as you know. Gemini represents the birth of individuality, individual sparks emerging from the cosmic sea. It represents human relationships and the sacred marriage, and also the human connection to the divine or with the divine, and luminous matter with dark matter. Gemini represents the marriage of the self and the divine as well. And the marriage of self and the divine has to do with becoming twice born or emerging into a space of enlightenment where we enter into that divine marriage. The movement of one toward the other, the twins, is driven by striving toward meaningful interrelationship, love. And love, as it turns out, oddly enough, requires thought. Love is, there may be an initial attraction, but then what happens is it evolves into a space of mindfulness and heartfulness as it matures. And interestingly, the paradox here is that without separation, without the separation. And that's the separate, you can see the separation between the lovers, and the lovers are essentially all pairs of opposites. Without the separation between the two, there can be no demonstration of love. So on this planet, when we're talking about the mystery of love, the divine mystery of love, there is this divine separation. That's part of the cosmic plan, is part of the cosmological story of this planet, of this dimension, that we would be drawn toward the other. This is the power of attraction, which has 4 aspects to it. The power of attraction, electromagnetism, that's one of the aspects of attraction. And that's the charge of positive and negative coming together. The second aspect of attraction is gravity. We fall toward the larger mass, even as it pulls toward us. This is a mutual allurement, a state of mutual allurement. But we can get drawn in and we can fall in. That's like falling in love. The strong nuclear force is the third aspect of attraction, and that's positive plus positive, which usually repel. But if positive plus positive are tightly enough together, there's a super intense bond that happens, like proton plus proton. Then there's the weak nuclear force. That's the fourth aspect of the power of attraction. I love the science part of this too. The weak nuclear force is when different atoms are drawn so close together that they fuse into another type of atom altogether. That's called fusion. When atoms are drawn so close together, they fuse into another type of atom and then become something entirely different. So that's the weak nuclear force. And I'm not going to go into those right now, but I talk about them in my book, Visionary Cosmology. And I love that as part of the lovers. So essentially, the lovers represent, there are 3 layers, I'll call them, of this card, the lovers. Okay, so that would be self. First, I will say loving the self. Okay, loving the self. So that's our interior quest to love. So that's one. Then we also have the idea of self and the other, or the search for our cosmic twin, some way to manifest connection on this planet. And then we have a third layer, which is about the self and the cosmos, the self in relation to the divine cosmos. These are all dimensions of what we call that thou art. This is you, this is me, this is us. You are the power of the cosmos unfolding. You are the worlds and the opening between worlds. That's why the lovers is known as the path of mediumship or the path of prophecy, because with this space of the lovers, we're always entering into that mystical between space, between the two. We enter this opening when we fall in love. And falling in love, I just want to mention that for a moment. When we fall in love, we open to receive the other. And then we wind up receiving and then giving birth to the new. And when we fall in love, each lover is only half of the equation, not even half. As we know, there's the self, there's the other, and there's the third, which is the love itself. This becomes like the sacred marriage at the center of the Tao. But in the middle, between the lovers, again, is the sword. Okay, because while we are in this form, we cannot have total unity That's why we need to, because we're different. We're made to be different. We're meant to be different. But that's why we have to hold loosely around the potential sword. But the sword is also the crack between worlds, a place where conception occurs. It's the sword of birth and the sword of death. Birth takes place through division. So first there's union, and then there's division. We have a driving force to reconnect. And eventually we learn on this path. It's a path. It is a path. And eventually we learn on this path through love that we have never been disconnected. That's the end point. We've never been disconnected. We are universe, being and becoming. But falling in love with the other along the way opens a channel of cosmic realization. We are that which we seek. We find out. We are inside that which we seek. And that is inside of us. And this becomes the path of the lovers. Another thing about falling in love is it makes us so pliable. It's one time in our lives when we really fall in love that we become really pliable. We will be willing to change and become and do anything. We will do anything for love. That's our big quest. Okay, standing right behind the lovers, as they say, is key 15, the devil, which I get a charge out of that. Okay, so the lovers is number 6. And this is very simply also just a mathematical. The devil is number 15. 1 + 5 = 6. And when we lay out, as in Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit, you can see that the whole deck, tarot deck, is laid out, and the devil and the lovers are right there together in the layout of the deck. Okay, number 15, the devil, Capricorn. So falling in love opens us up, makes us pliable, makes us crazy, makes us change, brings us into change. But we also have a fear of falling in love. And we have a fear of losing ourselves in love. And the devil represents that, because love opens us up, makes us permeable. And then we have a fear of dissolution, of losing what we have, of losing what we are, who we are, of losing our meaning, losing our identity as the one. And this is part of what we're seeing all around us in our culture, is there's a fear of losing our identity. If we fall in love with the other, there's a price for falling in love with the other. A fear of knowing, a fear of realizing that crack in the cosmos, a fear of becoming the crack in the cosmos. That means opening up to become a channel. We fear change, and we know love will change us. We know this in ourselves. What if the world we know ceases to exist? Oh, no. As bad as it is, it could be worse. And how will we deal with the pain of that, or the perceived pain of that? The perceived pain of having found we could lose. So that is how the devil is standing right behind us, telling us, don't open the path, don't open the veil. And yet, through the veil, we rend the veil with that sword. And through the veil is the second birth, the emergence. And this is part of our drive too, to understand ourselves as cosmological beings, to understand ourselves in a level we have never known before. The drive to understand our individual purpose as the divine child, the child of the voice, on a higher, more expansive level. And this entails absolutely a transformation in all aspects of our being, our spirit, our heart, our consciousness, our body. And in order to do this, we need to dispose of that which no longer fits and surrender into the fact of our birth and our death and the power of our love all at once, accepting our birth, our death, our love. These are the three great mysteries of this planet. This requires separating out and recombining, giving up one form to gain another, surrendering in order to achieve victory. This is a disintegration and a reintegration of the totality of self to return the soul to the cosmological garden. Okay, just a few more notes about the symbology on the card. So here is the balancing of the Divine Mother and the Sacred Son. The blue of the Mother represents the cosmic sea, and the Sun is orange-yellow, an orange-yellow combination of fire, the fire spirit, and air, mind, and consciousness. And above, we see their wings of the Holy Spirit, so to speak. That represents divinity within and all around. We see the sword of Zayin here. We see the Western medical symbol of the caduceus with the snakes climbing up the central path. That's a path of awakening. We have Venus represented here, and we also have Mercury. Here's Mercury. We have Mercury and Venus overlapping on the lovers. So those two lovers are balancing around the razor's edge. They're balancing around the crack between worlds. The masculine, wounded and fearful, the feminine, caretaking and confident, but they're holding loosely so as not to get cut. To end this lecture, which I'm feeling as I am delivering this lecture, it feels to me very esoteric and mystical, way more so than I thought it was going to be. It seemed natural and normal to me when I was creating it. And now, as I'm speaking it, I feel it's very esoteric. And I think the Lovers is very esoteric, and in a way, one of the hardest cards to understand in the whole deck because of its power. And we will go even deeper into understanding this. So here we have three planetary mysteries: the birthing, the deathing, and the loving. Those are the biggest ones. Three levels of love: self, internal, inner love, self-love, love of other, and love of cosmos, or the infinite divine. And to conclude, I'd like to share three love stories for your consideration. Okay, the first love story is, this is what we do as humans. We follow the inner journey, and that's for self-love and to find ourselves. So when I was ordained on summer solstice, 1993, the day before my ordination, which was in Pennsylvania, at the Wyalusing Rocks in Pennsylvania, I received a blessing from the chairman of the Eastern Delaware tribe, and I learned about the task of the ancient task of the Eastern Delaware. And that was that at age 15, and right now I'm thinking that 15 is an interesting time frame, because that's the number of the devil and going out into the material world to seek something. Okay, so, but what happens is at age 15, the inner song is sought in a spiritual journey, a vision quest, right? A 3-day vision quest, or not, it's not a 3-day vision quest. It's a vision quest to find your song, and you don't come back until you get it, okay? Once you receive a song, once you receive this song, then the song is going to tell you what your role in the tribe will be for the rest of your life. So age 15, you go get your song and go out and get your song by yourself. You have to seek it by yourself. So I'm talking about the inner journey. So that night, so this was my ordination. I was going to be ordained on a Sunday, and that was on a Saturday. And that night I went to sleep basically, and I awakened in the middle of the night with a song, with a tune and everything. So I did receive a song, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. So I love to give you that exercise as well, just to seek your own song and to know your own path. So my song was, the words are, I'm not going to sing it to you right now, but life is just a dream in the making, dream in the waking, dance by a stream, dance in a dream. Life is but a song in the meadow, deer in the meadow, deer by the stream. Dance in the dream, dance by the stream, waken the stream. And the stream for me was the stream of consciousness and the stream of love. And I haven't wavered from that. As simple as that song is, that is my path. I know it is my path. And then the next story that I wanted to share with you is the story of the outer search. So we have the inner journey, then we have the outer journey. Okay, what about the Webb satellite that was launched on Christmas Day? So I'm going to bring this in right now in terms of the lovers. This is our, as a species, this is our path of the lovers. This is our search for love. We are calling out. We are calling out collectively. Is there anybody out there? Is there anybody we can connect with? This is one of the big tasks. It's going to be looking at planets, 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 planets. Is there anybody we can connect with? Because this would be, and it has been stated by some of the designers and some of the people who will be using it for their different projects, this could be our cure for our cosmic loneliness. That is our big planetary seeking. So that's story number 2, is the search and the outer journey, searching for the cosmic twin, for the other. So we have the inner journey, we have the outer journey. And then for your consideration, I also want to share with you a really strange story, which I'm going to call the consummation. Because when we find the other, our species, and not just our species, but this planet is a planet of consummation. We have to eat to live, it's a planet of predation. So this is something that we are continually coming to terms with. One of the things that broke my heart, I don't know if you all know about this, but I live at tide pools. So I live above tide pools, and what we witness, and I'm also trained as a docent for those tide pools, and I've been very aware of them for 40 years and what's happened. So as you can imagine, a lot of the life in the tide pool has died in the last 40 years. A lot of the color is disappearing and so on. So one of the things that happened was when I first moved here 40 years ago, almost, the tide pools were filled with sea stars, starfish. And then something began to happen to the starfish that they called sea star wasting syndrome. It was so sad. The sea stars started to, all the different species, there were so many species of sea stars, and they started disintegrating, and they're literally disintegrating. So their arms would fall off. They would waste away. Okay, so it was known that this was a result, or it was believed by the scientists, and people are studying this, that this was a result of global warming, of the water changing 2 degrees, and the sea stars. It's not just the sea stars, but the sea life can't handle it. So about in 2013, 14, basically all the sea stars just disappeared up and down the west coast of the United States. It was such a sorrowful, heartbreaking thing to watch this disappear. Okay, now here's what I want to tell you about. It was believed to be caused by a waterborne virus because they could see this virus. They called it a pandemic. They could see the virus, are all around and inside the starfish. But then it turned out that the virus wasn't the cause of the sea star wasting syndrome. The virus was a result, because when the sea stars started to disintegrate, the virus then came and inhabited the sea stars. Okay, so as it turns out, what they then discovered was that what the pandemic was actually triggered by was the seawater warming that in fact created algae. And what the algae did was the algae caused a layer that suffocated the sea stars. So they're dying of suffocation. Now, here is what just happened. And this, I wanted to give it to you for your contemplation, so you could contemplate it as part of the path of the lovers. So we have the inner journey, we have the outer journey, and we have the consummation. We also consume what we love. Okay, so also disappearing from those tide pools was the major sea star predator, Pisaster ochraceus, that was disappearing. It all disappeared, the predators. And the predator was known as a keystone species, one of those species that holds everything in place. And when you take out the keystone species, you're really in trouble. Okay, all of a sudden, studies indicate what they're calling, quote, the stars have come back out, which means the sea stars are suddenly reappearing. How are they reappearing? Okay, it turns out that this keystone predator, Pisaster, they call it, releases its sperm and eggs into the water where fertilization occurs. So they could be floating, this sperm and egg could be floating for miles actually in the water from this predator. Fertilized egg develops into a planktonic larva. And then what happens is, as that larva hits a certain substrate in the ocean, like a certain level, it goes through this unbelievable metamorphosis where it suddenly starts to produce legs and turns into a sea star. So from out of the predator's body issued all this new life that is happening all up and down the coast. And it's when it hits the right substrate, the contact triggers the metamorphosis. And instead of having drifting larvae, we suddenly have a whole new field of starfish theoretically predisposed to be able to handle the climate change. We shall see. Okay, so this is part of cosmic love, big cosmic love. The ultimate question that we are asking with the lovers is about what's wrong? What can we do to fix it? What can we do to create unification? And I say right now, ask any question. Love is the answer, and love is a practice. Love is about reaching across the divide to comfort and be comforted. But we have to hold gently across that divide, or we're going to get cut. But the key is bringing in the Hierophant, the listening, and then finding the new voice. And I wanted to share at the very end of this book, this is our new book, Sanctuary, from the Sisters of the Holy Pen, which just came out last month. And I wrote a conclusion to this book that I want to share with you. I have to find it. It's right here. Okay. So we did 3 books last year. The first one was called Liberty. The second one was called Justice. And the third one is called Sanctuary. And all of this during 2021, a year of tremendous disaster. All of the books, as it turns out, I felt ended in the same place. What place did they end? They ended with love. Where there seems to be no liberty, practice love, and there will be liberty. When justice fails to reign, let love crown the realm, and there will be justice for all. When sanctuary seems impossible to achieve, if we turn our gaze to the power of love, the sacred earth will provide. Love unites what our minds divide. And I'm going to end right there as we enter the year of the lovers with all of these things to think about, all of these things to contemplate, and we'll see how the year unfolds based on this information and carrying forward with love as a practice. And now we are going to move toward our card draw of our individual cards for 2022. So right now I will leave you with this on this note. Love, 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 bless, 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 blessings for 2022.